Welcome to AI Hard Hats, where we explore the real world operations, systems, and innovations shaping the future of real estate and construction. Today, we're joined by Ashley Baillio, broker owner of Blue Realty, leader of the Sell South Florida team, a brokerage or a boutique brokerage known for incredible client experience, high performance teamwork, and remarkable growth. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. So let's start from the beginning. What inspired your move into real estate and what ultimately led you to being a broker owner?
For sure. So, like every citizen in the world, or at least a US dream, real estate is easy money and fun. And since there's no skill involved in the transaction, I figured I would just get my license to build my own portfolio. Those delusions lasted about 3 months past
I
getting my
was going to say,
license. And I ended up partnering with a brokerage that had a phenomenal training system. And I saw them rinse and repeat highly skilled agents who were going to be working until they were 110 because there was so much focus on chasing the sale and the transaction, but no attention to the model of streamlining or eventually retiring, existing, building a business that exists past you. And so I ended up selling my services to the highest team in the office so that I could launder my split. And I just wanted to be like, hey, don't give me leads, don't give me anything. I'm going to clean up your system so that you can start taking the weekends off, get you a good staff in place, but I'd like to be at a better split. And I filled that function for them and just really fell in love with fine tuning the operations of it all. Was still doing my own production and just excited about the money I kept, but ultimately realized I was the product as the agent. Of course, every car insurance, health provider, my information had been sold by the board, the brokerage, all of it. And so it just taught me another weakness within the industry where high skilled professionals do not want their time wasted. They do not want their information shared the same way the type of clients I want value that personal connection and not being treated like the product. So I switched to a boutique brokerage where there was a little bit more freedom, but even less structure than at the corporate level. And ultimately, within 5 years of working at that company, I was offered the opportunity to step into ownership and start cleaning up their systems as well. So my big background before real estate was with restaurant operations, and I did training and development for getting grand openings on deck for the brand Chick-fil-A, actually. So that was my background: was
I've
how
never
did you
heard of
hire?
them.
I know. But I mean, they have a really cute cow and it's a whole fun thing. But it was taking that corporate and wonderful training out of that background and seeing what could translate across different industries. And then I just fell in love with real estate. So I'm officially rooted here. I don't sell any more chicken, unfortunately, and having a good time.
Nice. That's interesting, having um, that background in operations and especially on the corporate level, and then being able to bring that over onto the into the real estate end of things. Obviously, mentorship and operations are a big part of that. So, in order to kind of transition into your own boutique company seems like a pretty natural transition. When you use the term boutique, what does that mean in your business?
So I would say either outside of a franchise or under 300 agents are where I feel like you stay in a boutique space. Obviously, there are quite a few smaller brokerages that had up to like 5, 10 offices, but they'd really started at that micro level. But I don't know when the transition happens and you officially become corporate. I think when you get big enough to have a target on your back and you might start adjusting your policies to protect the brand
Yeah.
over the agent. I think that's
Yeah,
where
that
that
makes sense.
transition happens.
Yeah.
So, which
Yeah.
I appreciate and respect. I get why they have to do it, but I didn't necessarily enjoy being a part of it when I was an agent.
Fair enough. So, obviously, you got a lot on your shoulders when it comes to that. What parts of your business do you feel are the most time consuming or manual?
Yeah. So when I first took the ownership role, I realized I was answering the same question to 10 different agents every day. And then my day disappeared and I was doing my real work at 1 a.m. So even having experience in business ownership, I was not immune to the pitfall of believing I had to be everything to everyone. But eventually I talked myself out of that with the Pareto principle and I started using Loom for recording our operation systems. I actually have a training podcast for our agents. And anytime a question was asked more than once, it would get put on the calendar for an in person training. Anybody who could not attend that training had access by the following Friday to a podcast and a video template. And so I just started scaling my time that way. Now, if somebody comes to me with a question for the relationship, I always give them it once. I will always spend time to answer the question with you once, because that is my job as a broker owner, is to make them feel cared about, to make sure that they're not just a number in the machine I'm trying to build. But if unfortunately with agents, sometimes it's easier for them to just keep asking the same question instead of learning the information and personalizing it. So I know very quickly if we've already had the conversation, and I'll just, hey, that's episode 33. Why don't you go ahead and take a listen to that? And if there's still anything that's unclear, I'd be happy to revisit it with you.
That's a great idea.
Just a very nice way to show care while not allowing my time to be monopolized.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. That kinda leads me into my next question, like, you're obviously gonna want your business to grow. If your volume doubled tomorrow, like, where would be the biggest growing pains? It sounds like you got a pretty good grasp on training your agents, so volume is the next step, I would imagine.
Yeah. So what we like to do is I view the first time there's a frustration, everybody gets a free pass. It's on me as a owner to figure out what caused that issue and address it. Make sure that there's not a recurrence. But where that becomes tricky in our, well, honestly, no, it's what's created the solution where scale is going to be very achievable. I don't currently take on any personal deals myself. I
Okay.
have a very easy onboarding system where when a lead or somebody I care about comes to me and needs help in a transaction, I have the immediate team, that South Florida team. It's 9 individuals who are highly specialized. And I chose their skill over my potential profit. So they're not the typical team where I'm asking for a 50-50 and kind of throwing a grunt, for a lack of a better word, on it because they're willing to take that opportunity. I have a couple people that do corporate relos, a couple people with military. I have 3 different languages represented within the team that are most popularly spoken here. And I try to create a little bit of overlap because I want all of those agents to be successful outside of me, but we all have cycles in our business. And so if something comes to me, I go to my first choice. I say, "Hey, do you want to do this at a 50-50?" I hopefully I've taught them well enough to say no. Sometimes they just say yes and they're sweet, but hopefully they're negotiating a little on that. And then if the numbers make sense to me, then I bring them on the deal and they take. I've structured my business where it can be shopped out. And if the person doesn't negotiate or the terms don't make sense for both of us, then there's usually a redundancy. There's another person who could also step in at a high level. And the reality is I think agents need to negotiate for themselves more. If you get a Zillow lead right now, you are paying 40% for that lead. So why on earth would you shop out higher quality leads and referrals at only 25%? That's kind of become the industry standard. And I think it shows a lack of wanting to explore your value. A lot of people are so concerned about being proven invaluable or the rejection or maybe the embarrassment of a negotiation not going their way. But I want our agents to be braver in asking for what they want, demanding the commissions they feel their services merit, and not being afraid to get that pushback in that conversation, because that's how you can really figure out if how good you think you are lines up with what people are willing to pay. And that's a fun thing to explore as you grow.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, where do you get most of your leads from?
I love throwing parties. So I built a business that I love and enjoy. I don't pick up the phone to call unless I'm genuinely calling somebody that I care about. I'm probably the one weird agent where if a random person calls in and says, "I saw you on this," I'm gonna be like, "Oh, scam," and immediately hand that out to, we have a WhatsApp for my team, and I'll just screenshot it and say, "Who wants to go for this? If you convert it," that I'll take 25% on because I consider those kind of a lark. If they can't tell me where the business is coming from, then I don't typically want to work with them. I work with people I care about at a deep level because my service model is pretty time intensive as far as the actual conversations. So if I don't like you, I don't technically want to work with you. So people I know is the answer, or people that
Yeah,
I know who they care, the people I know care about them, then I would gladly take them on as well.
very, relationship-based selling.
It's why I get excited to show up to work. I know that's not a very sexy answer for our industry because everybody's looking to scale, 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 which I want to scale everything outside of the relationship. I don't want to spend time doing creative content or any kind of framework. Like, I don't want to waste my bandwidth there. I just want to be the most caring and skilled professional that somebody could come across so that if I want the opportunity to win your business, I'm a no brainer. Like, that's my business model is not to lose.
Yeah, great business model. Where do you get people to come to your parties? Because I
It's
don't
so
remember
fun.
ever getting an invite.
Well, if you would like the invite now, I am happy to start including you in that. So, just this past weekend, we did the traditional mini photo shoot. And the idea behind the event, it's actually funny. We don't always want people to show up to the event because that gets very expensive. So, we're happy with like maybe a quarter to even 15% of people showing up. But what we're excited about is everybody wants to be invited, nobody wants to come. Like that is a very 2020 and on rule. So we're just happy to share the invite. And if they want to come, there's no pressure, but we try to do a variety of events. So we have a wine tasting night coming up, and that is going to be we have cheap bottles and expensive bottles. And that way somebody can walk into any event for this holiday season and know that they're going to grab something off the shelf and bring something relatively impressive without having to feel like an expert. So we like to do unique things, and the power is in putting out the invite. We always start with a digital, like, look what's happening email blast. Then we'll follow it up with a personal, like, text to them. And then it's a call of, did you see it? Well, now you have three touch points that are extremely low pressure and you're always top of mind. So our best party for me personally, it was the invite. I got 6 listings off of one party. It was it was awesome. And, now it's normally 1 to 2 is the average, but that's when I was like, "Oh, parties for life."
Yeah, right?
And we got 9 as a team because other people got their opportunities out of it as well. And so it was a very enjoyable party, and that one, we just brought in a paella chef where we set up a bunch of picnic style tables, invited everybody to hang out. We had 110 people show up. That one was crazy. And then we always invite our professional partners in so that we're not paying a ton for like the prizes, but we'll do like raffles where if people do Google reviews for us, they get tickets because we know that we need to show up SEO wise or tag us or follow us. So we're trying to train those behaviors, but all the prizes were donated by like, we had a Halo system for an air conditioning. So that's a $400 prize, and a buyer that I had just placed was the one that purchased it and or won it, I should say. And they were going to purchase it because I recommended, and then they won it at the party a week later. And so just little things become super valuable. And if you're doing one a quarter, you are always top of mind because you're really staying in contact with those people.
Yeah, for sure. And who doesn't like a party?
I love them. That's all I want to do. That's why I did real estate and self-employment. So yeah, it's stuff I want to attend is what we do.
Yeah, no, that's a
It's
great
a fun business
marketing
model.
right there. Yeah, and fun for all, for sure. What trends do you see shaping the South Florida market heading into 26? 25 has been a pretty interesting market in itself. But there's a lot of fluctuation happening right now with the economy and interest rates and everything else. If you were to put on your or look into your crystal ball, what do you see?
I suspect that we're going to continue to see the spread of prices. So I think the best houses that would have sold for a premium back in 20, I consider July of 2022 like last heyday of our market. Actually, it was right before the interest rates started ticking up in October. And that's when I first started to see buyers hesitate because those monthlies just weren't attractive. It also coincided with Florida's insurance crisis because we had just come off of 2 massive back-to-back hurricanes that nearly devastated our insurance market. And so now when I look at the buyer appetite, it's the home maintenance ultimately, because if their insurance is unaffordable, it's the same thing as a trash interest rate. And then, of course, the actual interest rates. So I do think the best done homes, the ones with the new roofs, the impact protection, those that have been cared for, they're going to stay resilient. We're not going to see huge price drops. We've seen a little more activity because our insurance crisis was addressed relatively well, where now I think everybody should go shop their policies. I just had mine drop $11,000
Wow.
due to just a couple code updates, and then new carriers coming to the market. So that's huge for affordability. For a while, I was like, "Ah, I kind of want to go live in a condo where they bulk negotiate." But that trend, so I'm looking at the insurance cost as it's helped a bit. We do need the interest rates for people to just get used to that appetite. But what I think is going to happen is eventually sellers are going to realize that you can't pass on your deferred maintenance at a profit. If you didn't bother investing in your property, you are going to sell for hundreds of thousands lower than comp. And that was standard before COVID. But when money became cheap, you started seeing low quality construction sell for the same as high value construction. It was always above ask and it was always quick because somebody could just go get a 2% loan on like a Home Depot credit card, fix it all themselves and call it a day, which is what caused the construction tension where that wasn't as available. I know those prices are sky high. So there's quite a bit that I think is influencing it. I'm watching the condo market because we're coming up in 2025 to the end of everybody's supposed to be in compliance. We're really seeing all the associations make their documents available. All the structural integrity inspections and reports should be submitted where we have the true cost of assessments. And so I do think there's going to be, and it's been happening a little bit, but a mass inventory coming to market. And then I think condos are going to start to be a pretty sexy investment. Unfortunately, once the people who can't afford these assessments sell just to not get foreclosed on, like it's going to be very ugly for a little while. And our government has done a relatively good job spreading out the compliance so that it didn't devastate us 3 years ago. But we are coming to, I believe, the end in those extensions. So I'm watching that market for opportunities. I'm telling all of our buyers to be ready to kick a ton of tires with offers, lowball the heck out of everybody, because eventually there's some motivation. But the trend that we're all chuckling about in our current market is while the actual closed price is going down, we're seeing the amount of sales gradually, like less than 2% of increase quarter over quarter, but still it's showing that people are starting to re-engage. But the average list price, the price that sellers come to market on, is still ticking upwards, meaning that the sellers refuse to be realistic.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to still have a little bit of the freeze until sellers realize that you're still winning the lottery. If you bought this home pre 2020, it's an amazing opportunity.
What do you think that market adjustment looks like going down the road? Because we really haven't seen an adjustment per se. It just there's just a steady incline of
Soften.
yeah.
And so I think it's a false softening at this point because sellers aren't quite realistic yet. They forget that there used to be a huge gap between well cared for properties and cared for properties. As it stands right now, the homes that need roofs, need major systems, and are still priced at a premium, they're expiring off the market. They're not selling at all. It's why we have less closed sales. And that falsely inflates that median sales price because only the good homes are selling, which is why you haven't seen the true drop off in values, but you've seen a huge decrease in actual closes. Eventually, those people are going to need to sell because they can't afford to put the new roof on themselves or whatever it is. And as those sales come to market, I think there will be the appearance of a steeper decline in median sales price, but I don't think that's anything like at the end of the day, I tell our personal clients, you should not be concerned about the overall market trends. We stay aware of them, but they don't create any emotion in us because you only have one house to sell. I need to know what you did with this house, and I'm going to do the best for you to make sure we capture the most amount of money out of it. But the good news is you're going to sell no matter what, you're in a better position. Even our like we had unfortunately the worst seller experience we had lately. They needed a new roof. We had 3 leaks while we were under contract. Unfortunately, they bought the house for 560 and now we were selling it closer to 505. And the reason that was the case is they bought it at the very peak, July 2022, and then they finished their residency and needed to let it go now to go take on their real job. They still came out after all the net cost everything for the lifestyle they wanted. They would have still spent $11,000 more in rent for a comparable property. So even though you could look at it as a huge deficit, they took the gamble, they tried to build wealth, and it still wasn't a net loss to their lifestyle. Like real estate is still a smart opportunity if you negotiate it well.
That's a good point with the rental market being what it is as well. I don't know about South Florida, but in North Florida, we're actually starting to see a little more of an adjustment when it comes to rents. And whereas before, I mean, I live on the beach side of things, so it's always a premium. But finally I'm seeing rents start to tick down a little bit and people making those adjustments. And so I wonder how much of that is going to relate to the real estate market and selling.
I do believe it's gonna translate because, I mean, again, supply and demand. I When the interest rates were super cheap, a lot of people finally took that opportunity to even become investors.
Yeah,
And that really saturated our market here too, where we saw that was the first shift we saw in the South Florida market. Even before prices started softening, we went from having 3 good rental options to 30 overnight. Like, it was very and sup because of supply and demand, that meant what could have been 3,800 previously, you're now lucky to capture 3,200. But that also I'm looking to see more of those sales come to market too, 'cause ultimately, the insurance cost affected that. If you can't a second home, it's not cheap to insure.
right.
The property tax debate is another important element there because our governor is trying to remove the property taxes. That first went into our House Ways and Means Committee for review back, I think that was back before 2021, 2020. And it was initially proposed to make housing more affordable for our senior population. And by the time it made it in front of the committee, it was all property taxes. And where I'm watching that really closely as the most important thing that can happen for the values of Florida real estate is if our government keeps it for homestead. It is going to be the best thing that could have ever happened because property taxes with these huge increases in values are significant and a detriment. Here, the average property tax bill is $11,000 a year. So it's not something to be ignored.
Yeah.
But if they happen to remove it from all properties, which my spidey senses, my conspiracy theorist, because BlackRock was initially the largest PAC contributor to removing property taxes back in the day, they were the biggest sponsor of the congressman that was pushing it. I suspect that it's not going to remain just for homestead properties. And if it falls off for everybody, we will become a rental state because no citizen can compete against the corporations who are then going to buy up all the property because the largest inhibitor to cash flow is property tax and they all self insure. So we're not even playing the same game at that point. There will be no middle wealth investment opportunities because the corporations just aren't even playing the same game.
That is
So
interesting.
sorry, should I go get my foil hat?
That is interesting.
It's just one of those things that I'm watching, but personally, as a citizen, I would love to see the homestead removed. I don't trust that it would stop there, and that makes me a little nervous. So buy
Yeah,
all the property now because you can't compete once they go away.
that's that's a very good point. And I you do see it on a small scale already. When it comes to, corporations buying up a real estate. I mean, even I worked for a company called Invitation Homes that
Yep.
um, you probably heard of. I mean, when the economy was picking up steam again, all these homes that were in foreclosures, I mean, they were closing on 15, 20 houses at a time. And so
Yeah,
interesting.
they've been liquidating out of my immediate community. There were 5 of 300 homes, 5 were invitation, and they've since over the past since 2022 insurance crisis, they have started liquidating them, which I think it's because our HOA standards become untenable and we were just harassing the junk out of them on not keeping them at the right level, would be my suspicion. But those started hitting the market as everything was ticking up, and I'm guessing it's because there were better opportunities out of state. I don't really know.
Interesting. Shifting gears a little bit, and kind of getting into the technology of how it's affecting real estate. Consumers are getting more and more savvy. They're using AI to research not only brokerages, but also homes, markets. Where do you see all of this going in the future, and how are real estate agents kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but how are you navigating that? And so you can be on the same level as your consumer.
Yeah, it's so if you're not paying attention to AI, you are doing a disservice to your business and your client. Because as our agents, we ask them to stay aware of it. We actually ask them what is being searched right now in Google that I need to be addressing on my Instagram. And then we actually train them because AI has made it easy for all of us. So we train them to ask, what is the most commonly searched, least saturated space right now? So that then we can throw captions on our videos and show up and answer questions in spaces that aren't being as tackled by agents as a whole. And that improves our Google searchability because even though we're referral based, even when you get a referral, the first thing they do is Google your name. So you need to look credible. You need to have a strong presence because you won't even get further in the conversation if you're a ghost. That's an old luxury.
Yeah.
So just because I don't necessarily want strangers doesn't mean to best win the people I want, I have to come across as a powerhouse online, and it's non-negotiable. So I love that AI has made it easier to have those conversations and get instant feedback. We use AI for all of our frameworks, and then for our training specifically, there isn't a training I've done lately where we don't start it with a prompt to AI, look at what AI is saying about it, and then pull out the objections and say, agent, if you saw this as a client, what would you be complaining about? What would you be nervous about? And how do you add value into that space? Because AI is brilliant for data gather, but any professional who is truly an expert, it is riddled with errors. It's horrible advice from a general perspective. And so to be just an expert enough to speak into it in a way that encourages people being curious, but ultimately maintains you as the expert that's going to make sure they don't get misled is hugely valuable.
Yeah, and I agree, AI it's not gonna replace humans. You're always and especially when it comes into the sales aspect of the real estate business or any business for that matter that is heavily, relied on sales, which I can't think of one that's not. But, it's one thing to get information, like you say, the data mining and that kind of thing, but it's another to be able to translate that and to be able to talk to your consumer. And so it's not AI versus humans, it's those that know how to use AI to their benefit. And I think that's kind of where there might be a gap. Right.
Which is it's beautiful because one of my favorite thoughts is the momentum. So the people who are willing to adapt early, who don't dismiss things. There's a couple thoughts there. There's a book called Rookie Smarts, and it's about how just ignorance can create the ultimate advantage because you don't know the old way of doing things. So I'm actually really excited about all the younger agents coming into the market who are exploring aggressively with AI instead of just leaning on the old tricks. And then so I mean, our business, it's know, like, and trust. And so the good news is like it's easier to be known than ever before, thanks to AI and just optimizing. Like there's plenty of information out there. The likability. Um, at the end of the day, that can never be replaced by a machine, that personal relationship. So ideally, people are using AI to give themselves bandwidth to step into the space of caring more. So I'm really excited about my business model for the future. I hope other people are looking at the opportunity similarly.
I think you just nailed that. I think that's a really great perspective on AI. If your business could become twice as efficient overnight,
Why
what would you
wouldn't you?
use?
Yeah, like why wouldn't you? So
Yeah.
we use it for frameworks. We don't really create anything from the rough anymore. You don't have to create images. So Canva is a must in our business. And so all of our templates, everything's already been done. And it is so much easier, thank God, to be a criticizer than a creator. Well, let AI be the creator and then just come in with a critical eye. And now you're not an insufferable person because nobody likes a criticizer when it's of efforts that people put in. That's rude. So it becomes a really good opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay. Well, if you could leave new brokers or rising agents with one piece of advice on balancing service, systems, and scale, what do you think that would be?
Figure out what you love to do. So obviously, as your own boss, your energy is the most important thing in your business. And there's no wrong way to do real estate, thank God. But like there's a million different ways to generate the business. And for you to be able to show up every day with the right energy, you have to be super focused on your unique value and what drives you to be excited to show up and be the gift to your clients. Don't get distracted because you are the product. Everybody's going to try to sell you the next best thing to do. But just like weight loss and exercise, there's do the work. It's the action is consistency is what makes you succeed. So figure out what you like enough to actually be consistent at it and then make sure you get better at it. That's it. There's no I wish there was a one pill, but just do
Yeah,
what you
there's
love.
not. There never is.
Yeah,
Just like in weight loss and everything else. Yeah.
it is. There's tools to make you better at it, but you gotta do the work. At the end of the day, that's the answer.
It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed our conversation here. And I want to thank you for sharing your experience and your vision. What you're building at Blue Realty is a powerful example of what's possible when leadership, strategy, and innovation come together here.
Thank you.
For our listeners, make sure you check out South Florida, right?
Yeah, so our, my Insta hag or, tag, AE Baillio. It's just my initials and my name, and then or hashtag Blue Realty, I'm tied to that, or even South Florida team. Those are all I'm not hard to find. I'm a real estate
Yeah,
agent.
I'm
Like,
sure. I'm sure you got a good footprint there on the internet.
ideally. Thank you. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode of AI Hard Hats.